Hello, my name is Pastor Pierce Frazier from Morning Star Chapel in Alpharetta, Georgia. And this Sunday, we're not having services because of the coronavirus. And as a result, I thought I would record my readings and my sermon and share it with you. I hope this is useful to you. Our lesson this week is from Psalm 103, and it's a popular psalm about compassion and the Lord's mercy. So listen. A psalm in praise of the Lord's mercies. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits. Who forgives all your iniquities? Who heals all your diseases? Who redeems your life from destruction? Who crowns you with loving kindness and tender mercies? Who satisfies your mouth with good things, so that your youth is renewed like the eagles? The Lord executes justice and judgment for all who are oppressed. And reading further, as for man, his days are like the grass. As the flower of the field, so he flourishes. For the wind passes over it, and it is gone, and its place remembers it no more. But the mercy of the Lord is from everlasting to everlasting on those who fear him, and his justice to children's children, to such as keep his covenant, and to those who remember his commandments to do them. Bless the Lord, you, his angels, who excel in strength, who do his word, heeding the voice of his word. Bless the Lord, all you hosts, his ministers of his, who do his pleasure. Bless the Lord, all his works, in all places of his dominion. Bless the Lord, O my soul. Amen. Now, one of the things that is commonly misunderstood about religion and about the Lord is, and it's a common criticism, and it makes sense when you think about it, is if the Lord is infinitely powerful, how is it that he lets evil happen? Now, there are two kinds of evil that is generally dealt with in the problem of evil. The first is actually really easy to deal with, and it's easy to deal with philosophically, but maybe worse psychologically. But philosophically, that problem of evil is, why does the Lord, if he's infinitely powerful, let bad people do bad things, or let anybody do anything evil? Why would he let somebody murder somebody else? And this is easy philosophically to deal with if you understand the concept of freedom. Now, this is something we talk a lot about in our church, but the short version is that love, in order for it to truly be love, has to be free. A very basic idea of this is in marriage. If a man asks a woman to marry him and she's not allowed to say no, that's not marriage. That's not love. That's not real. The same thing is happening with the Lord and his people. He is inviting us to be loving, good people. But that means in order for us to be free to truly be loving, we have to be able to say no to the Lord. It doesn't mean it's a good idea, but we are free to make that bad decision. And when people do evil in the world, they are acting from freedom to reject the Lord. Now, sometimes they're doing it ignorantly, but they're still in that liberty to do things that are against the Lord's will. So that's the one idea of the problem of evil that's pretty easy philosophically to handle, because you can just say, well, people have to be free and free people can make bad decisions. The second problem of evil goes back to a more ancient idea of what the word evil means. And that means bad tidings or misfortune. And this is a much more difficult one philosophically to deal with, but maybe easier psychologically. And the coronavirus is actually a great example of this kind of evil, this misfortune that happens to people that doesn't seem like it's anyone's particular fault. This is hurricanes, earthquakes, cancer, accidents, disease that spreads, even pandemics. And the philosophical trouble here is, if the Lord is all powerful and he's all loving, how is it that he is able to let evil happen like this? Not evil choices, but bad things happen to people. This is actually harder to deal with philosophically, but easier psychologically. Now, philosophically, one way of dealing with this is saying, it's true that these bad things are allowed to happen. But we have to ask ourselves, what if the Lord did intervene in all of these seemingly random bad things? For instance, what if the way the Lord worked was, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but ancient people actually believed this, and maybe some people still do today, that if I sacrifice the right stuff, if I burn the right stuff, or if I have enough prayers, or if I have enough people praying, that God, a divine being, will do my bidding. Now, it sounds a little crazy, especially to the modern mind, but this is actually how the ancient world worked. They imagined that divine beings had power and dominion over all these various random things that were totally outside of their control. Not only were they outside of their control, they were outside of their understanding. One of the problems that modern people have is that because we have science, which is a wonderful blessing, we have an illusion of control. A perfect example of this is weather. We understand weather scientifically. We understand how hurricanes build up. We understand what kind of damage they can do. We can track them. We can even predict them to a certain extent. Now, we can't predict them seasonally. If you look at the hurricane prediction models, they're terrible. Now, I don't want to knock on those scientists too much because they're doing the best they can. But they will tell you with intellectual humility, but also clarity, that they cannot predict these things, and certainly they cannot control it. We can't control hurricanes. When we understand something, we gain the illusion that we can control it. And that's because in order to control something, you do need to understand it. Another way of seeing this logically is if you don't know how gravity works, then you can't do anything to really work against it. That's the idea. But wait, people have been working against gravity for thousands of years before anyone had a scientific explanation of it. We think that understanding leads to control, but it's clearly evidentiarily not true. And so the modern mind struggles when things go outside of our control. You can see this in the coronavirus. People say, well, what did people do wrong? What is it that we should have known that we could have prevented this? Now, there are things that we could have done to prevent this, and there are things that we could have done to slow the growth. We're not having church on Sunday in the building. That's one way to flatten that curve, things like that. There are things we can do to control aspects of it. But realistically, a lot of it is outside of our control. And if you think about any individual person, it seems almost completely out of their control. Think about those at-risk people. Now, the reason why we're not having church in a building today is not because I personally am worried about getting sick. If I get the coronavirus, I'll get like a really bad flu. It's not about me. It's about those people who are at risk. And there's very little that they can do to control their at-riskness. Someone who is suffering from cancer, or who has MS, or who is elderly, they don't cause those conditions on themselves. So their relationship to the virus is very much outside of their control. Even if we know everything we can know about cancer, we won't necessarily be able to control it. The more we know about the coronavirus, that doesn't mean that we can control it. Knowledge does not equal control. We are taught that the Lord is able to control all things, but he lets the universe work the way he set it up. In other words, he has set the laws of nature and of order as they are. He has invented what we call physics and science. What we understand about how the world works is according to the rules that he set up. And these rules he lets work according to the way they should work, for lots of reasons. One simple reason is they need to be dependable in order for us to be useful and productive. Imagine if gravity was arbitrary. If it worked most of the time, but every now and then gravity didn't work. That would make it nearly impossible for us to build airplanes, to build buildings, to jump, to walk, to eat, to do anything. That randomness, the inability for us to even understand powerful forces, means that we would be paralyzed. The same is true with bad things that happen to people. If we understood how cancer worked, and as a result, we can help people who have cancer. We can investigate it. We can do useful things. We can love the neighbor. But if instead it was totally arbitrary and didn't obey any scientific rules, any kind of prediction, it was just, at least from our perspective, magical, then it would paralyze our ability to help those who suffer. Think about that. If things are arbitrary, it means that we are not able to be useful and loving. And so the Lord lets the world act according to order. And that's the most important key. The world is orderly. It is not arbitrary. The Lord is not going to arbitrarily or capriciously or cruelly give one person cancer and take it away from another just because people prayed right or sacrificed right or did some other kind of mumbo jumbo right. That's not how the Lord works. And that's important to know. The Lord is not going to magically make things like that go away. But wait, I'm a pastor. Does that mean I'm saying that we shouldn't pray? No, we should pray. But what are we praying for? We're not praying for magic. I don't pray for the Lord's help with coronavirus because I think magically, if I just pray enough, that somehow me being special, asking this super powerful being that he's going to intervene. But if I didn't pray, well then he'd just say, oh, well, not enough people are praying, not gonna help. That's not how it works. The Lord is actually already offering to help each and every one of us. But help us do what? To answer that, you have to remember what the Lord's goal is. Remember, we talked at the beginning about freedom because freedom is necessary for love. And that's the key. The Lord is above all else loving. That's why he rules the world according to order that can be understood according to us. It's why science is a worthwhile endeavor. It's why we can investigate the mysteries of the universe, because he wants us to be useful and loving to one another. Because there is something he cares about way more than anyone's physical health, and that's their spiritual health. Think about it this way. If you love your children, you want them to be healthy, obviously. But what you really want is for them to be happy. You want your children to be healthy because you know that by being healthy, they're more likely to be happy. Well, something that the Lord knows that often people forget is that the best source of happiness is love fulfilled. When I love the neighbor and they reciprocate, love me back, that brings joy to them and joy to myself. Let me read for you now another passage, this time from the Heavenly Doctrines of Emanuel Swedenborg. These are the Heavenly Doctrines given for the new church. And this book was from Emanuel Swedenborg, and it's Divine Love and Wisdom, and it's number 47. Divine love and wisdom cannot be and have expression in others it creates. The essence of love is not to love self, but to love others, and through love to be conjoined with them. It is also the essence of love to be loved by others, for thus is conjunction achieved. The essential ingredient in all love consists in this conjunction. Indeed, in it consists its life, which we call pleasure, gratification, delight, sweetness, bliss, happiness, and felicity. Love consists in willing what one has to be another's, and in feeling the other's delight as delight within oneself. That is what it is to love. So that's a simple idea or description of love that's also amazingly profound. Love is the desire for conjunction, and from that conjunction, joy. The Lord wishes us to be happy. And he knows that the way that we are going to be happy is if we are loving. He needs me to love my neighbor. Why? Not because he needs it particularly, but because he loves me. And he knows that if I love the neighbor, I'll bring them joy and they'll bring me joy. I'll bring them happiness and they'll bring me happiness. It's why the Lord, while on earth, said, love one another, that my joy may be fulfilled. Joy. That's the Lord's actual goal. Which means when something arises, some random, seemingly evil thing, like the coronavirus, it is a challenge for us to listen to the Lord's commandments, particularly his commandment to love one another. Or, even as he specifically said, to visit the sick, to give food to the hungry and drink to the thirsty, to clothe the naked, to welcome the homeless and sojourner, to visit the sick or imprisoned. This is what the Lord's asking us to do. So yes, we're not going to gather in big crowds, but he's challenging us to love one another, to think about who are those people that need our love. And the Lord, in his word, even specifically singles out the elderly, the sick, the widows and widowers, the orphans, those who are most at risk, the most vulnerable. It's why it is appropriate that we inconvenience ourselves a little bit. I love hockey. I'm a little annoyed that hockey's canceled. Too bad for me. Hockey isn't canceled because I will be better off. Hockey's canceled because there are those who are the least among us, who shall be treated as the most important. They are the ones who we should love. So if you have someone in your life at risk, love them. If you are someone at risk, let them love you. Because remember that when you let someone love you, when you let someone help you, even if you answer the phone to let them visit with you, you're giving them the opportunity to love you, which means you're giving them the opportunity to experience the Lord's joy. That's what the Lord asks of all of us. Remember again this line from the Psalms. I want to read it again. Bless the Lord, you, his angels, who excel in strength, who do his word, heeding the voice of the word. Bless the Lord, all you his hosts, you ministers of his, who do his pleasure. Bless the Lord, all his works, in all places of his dominion. Bless the Lord, O my soul. You, when you heed his commands to love one another as he surely loves us, when you minister to those around you, you are his angels. When people pray for help, the Lord sends his angels. But the angels he sends, yes, they're angels, but they're also us. They are the people that the Lord sends, that are his army of compassion and love. So that's my encouragement for you. See this sickness, this evil in the world as an opportunity, as an invitation from the Lord to love one another. For he surely loves us and wishes to bless us, every one. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a lovely week. And if you'd like more information, there's information down below. You can also subscribe or like our page to follow us and get more information. I'd love to hear some comments about how you are finding things in your neighborhood, how you're finding ways to love your neighbor, any struggles you might have. And if you are a member of my congregation and you have my contact info, please let me know if someone needs help. Thank you for listening. God bless.